Welcome back trackside here at Sydney Motorsport Park. We are about to launch into the final race on our program of round one. It has been an absolute epic weekend, both on and off track. Weather-wise has been absolutely beautiful here in Sydney. We've had a fantastic time here. Rob James right alongside me, Darren Smith. Rob, we're not too far away from seeing the Australian Formula 4 Championship cars roll out onto track, and ideal conditions really for these open wheelers, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll be driving into the sunset. A beautiful sunset greets us here at Sydney Motorsport Park. They'll definitely be running the tinted visors here today, to echo the famous words of Felipe, well actually not Felipe Massa when he wanted that clear visor at a very wet Malaysian Grand Prix, but it's very dry out there in case you haven't realised, in case you've been living under a rock today. I tell you what, people in motorsport are very hard to please. I don't think we could top anything. This was picture perfect, Darren.
It has been a tremendous weekend. We've seen the debut of new category in TCR. Here was the race earlier on this weekend.
It was a thrilling start. We saw Jackson Walls get a brilliant start off the line to be leading the field, but this is where the action unfolded. Antonio Studi and Lockie Hughes, that went to the steward's room, and they're still arguing to that one today, but results remain provisional as they were. There was a couple of other argy-bargy moments. Ryan Saul and the championship leader Lewis Leeds getting stuck into each other. Lewis Leeds, though, recovering later on in that race. The Camps officials there, thank you for all your hard work this weekend.
Great to everyone see making the highlights reel.
Yeah, exactly. Lewis Leeds running wide yes again. He was in last place, and he was another brilliant move. Ryan Saul and Antonio Estudi, a little bit of argy-bargy here. Ryan Saul on the dirty side of the racetrack, just struggling to get a hold of Antonio Estudi, but then they had another tangle. This was the race of high attrition with lots of bingles, carnage and what have you, but thankfully most of the field completed that second race.
Certainly did. It's been some good racing over the few years with Formula 4 right throughout since the inception, so we look forward to this final race for this weekend. Now, Rob, the Formula 4 is playing part with all of our Shannons Nationals right throughout the rest of this year, but Phillip Island, not all of them, but the rest of the championship running with the Shannons Nationals. Phillip Island, we discussed it earlier this weekend, a double round. So the next round is going to be 3 races on Saturday, 3 races on Sunday. So that's going to be a big workload for these races, isn't it?
Exactly. These guys are used to it. And to be honest, the drivers actually prefer it. I remember at the double round at Winton, the drivers were just absolutely thrilled to be cutting that many laps across one weekend. Of course, a conventional round is qualifying and 3 races. They do that twice. So it's 6 races, 2 qualifying sessions. Bang for buck. It's a brilliant weekend to go motor racing.
I've got to say, it's not just the drivers. I loved it last year at Winton. It was really good. The drivers just get in the zone. It's the more laps they get up to speed on lap 1 instead of easing into it. They can drive on the cold tyre because they've done it 6 times or 5 times in the weekend. The last race of the weekend at Winton last year was an absolute ripper as we look at the cars coming around the track, and here's how they will take off from the Sydney Motorsport Park grid in not too distant future. Lewis Leeds will lead off Lockie Hughes in position number 2. Of course, Lockie got damage in the last race. We'll start out of 2. Then it's Ryan Saul, who had a hard charging last race, and in fact a ripping last race for Ryan Saul. And Antonio Studi, Emerson Harvey, Tommy Smith and Jackson Walls will come from the rear of the field in the Objective Racing Batocchi Magale.
It's a couple of different systems that we have to determine the grid across the 3 races. So the first race is obviously the first qualifying session for the Castrol pole position, as won by Lewis Leeds at both the Australian Grand Prix and here at Sydney Motorsport Park. It's a reverse grid for race 2. That's where we saw the likes of Jackson Walls and Tommy Smith start from the front row there. Race 3, we have the second fastest times in qualifying. So that qualifying session, typically on a Friday or a Saturday, is super important to determine the entire weekend, basically. So if you have a dud qualifying session, that really puts you on the back foot throughout the weekend, and it makes it just that little bit harder to get those maximum 75 points that you want to get within a round. Actually, speaking of points, we're currently tied on points for both first and second. So Lewis Leeds and Antonio Estudi are currently tied on 40 points apiece. So pretty much whoever will win this race determines our overall round winner here at Sydney Motorsport Park. AGI Sport have had the double pretty much. This is the site of their very first round win here in 2016. And of course, Jaden Ojeda, last year's champion, took a clean sweep at this same venue here last year too.
Cars coming down now, being led by Lewis Leeds, arguably the most experienced Formula 4 racer on the planet. He's done a lot of it and won a race. Actually, no, second in a race in Mexico.
No, he won that race.
Won the race,
yeah.
As a support to the F1s there.
So technically he's a Grand Prix winner in both Australia and Mexico as young Lewis Leeds.
I like it, claim it.
And he's also raced at the Monaco Grand Prix as well.
I want to
Formula
take a
Renault.
touring car race if TV games or anything to go by.
Haven't we all? We're all winners. So that's everyone gets a trophy in motorsport, that's for sure. As we prepare for race 3 of the Cams Pace Australian Formula 4 Championship, the revs rise. Those 1.6 litre turbocharged Ford EcoBoost engines are bouncing off the rev limiter. And we're off. Lewis Leeds and Lockie Hughes even start, but Lewis Leeds just gets the jump, gets the traction off that line to be leading into turn 1. But again, Lockie Hughes just slotting behind the back of the Magale Lewis Leeds AGI Sport machine. They all get through cleanly.
Jackson Walls gazumped Emerson Harvey off the line there from the road back, ducked down the inside.
Have a look at this, Ryan Saul on the outside of turn 2, side by side. I'm getting deja vu from race 2, but this time they don't tangle into each other, and Ryan Saul looks to have scored 3rd position.
Ryan Saul was absolutely mega in the earlier race here today. Looking up the inside is Astudi. He's gone back a spot now, so he wants to get on and stay with Ryan Saul if he's going to be carving his way through Lockie Hughes and Lewis Leeds. 13 laps of the journey here, so there is a little bit more time compared to the 11-lapper earlier on. We've got 2 more laps to be able to maybe take a corner or 2 to size someone up rather than just throwing it down there and letting it all sort itself out as you come out of the corner. There may be just a little bit more sizing up done in this race.
Lewis Leeds very comfortable, fastest in the first sector on this opening lap, but that's a moot point. These tyres are cold. The track is cooled down considerably for this afternoon's lunchtime race. I tell you what, the most nervous man right now is currently in 4th place. Antonio Astudi will be certainly looking to capitalise on getting more points because, of course, he's tied for the round win so far after 2 races with 40 points with the man who's currently leading, Lewis Leeds.
So off that, he has to get a go on here, Antonio Astudi. 2nd generation racer. We've got a couple of them in this race, and 3rd generation in Emerson Harvey. Jackson Walls, 2nd generation as well. So good to see the family of motorsport going through the generations. Jackson Walls nicely dripped up through turn 1, ranges up onto the back of Tommy Smith. But this is the battle right out for the lead at the moment. Lewis Leeds, Lockie Hughes. Lockie Hughes didn't get any further than that corner back there on race number 2. So he would dearly like to get in the lead and just run away with this to try and amass some points behind him for this round, because at the moment he's basically on half the amount of points of the car in front of him.
We just saw in the background Tommy Smith getting a pass on Jackson Walls in the Poughkeepsie Corsa entry, and positions reversed. Jackson Walls getting the move on again on Tommy Smith. These guys will be both racing as well, ironically, in the Asian F3 series alongside their Australian Formula 4 commitments. So they're rivals in 2 different categories around the world, which is remarkable for these young teenagers.
Fantastic that they're doing double series duties. We saw Cameron Shields last year running in this Formula 4, running in F3, running in Formula 4 to select state rounds. So getting as many laps as he possibly can with a steering wheel in his hand and pedals at his feet. Really good way to get your eye in as you're doing it. It's like anything. In tennis, you can just go down the local tennis court and have a hit up against the wall, or with a friend. With racing, you've got to wait for a track to be available, a car to be available. You've got to have a whole bag of money to bring along with you as well. So it is a little bit different. It's a unique sport in that aspect that you don't just bring along a set of golf clubs and go into a nicely landscaped park and whack around some balls or a tennis court and hit a ball backwards and forwards over a net. It's a whole lot more complicated than that, motor racing.
No, exactly right. I mean, the drivers were itching to go to the go-kart track. Such was the 4-hour gap. But Tommy Smith falling behind Emerson Harvey and Tommy Smith, the teammates at Team DRM. Emerson Harvey in his his second motor race, his 3rd here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Just runs a little bit wide. Same story. Oh, but he's just got a great exit.
I tell you what, did he find the faster way around? That's what he did.
Excellent job by Emerson Harvey. Makes the move stick on young Tommy Smith. Tommy Smith, a bit more experience behind the wheel of Formula 4 machinery, just having a sniff around the back of his very young teammate.
Quote Cole Trickle, go high and wide.
Yeah, exactly right. Lewis Leeds, currently the fastest man out on track, 1 minute 32.621. about 200s ahead of Lockie Hughes, the nearest man on track. Lockie Hughes fastest in the first sector, as he has been. Lewis Leeds tends to get the second and third sectors right. For Lewis, only the second sector seems to be more dominant, but Lockie Hughes, he might be chasing for the round win, because he's certainly seeking revenge after race 2, where he scored no points after colliding with Antonio Studi in race 2.
With all the racing that Lewis Leeds has done in these cars, he's actually really good on cold tyres, and that only comes with time and behind the wheel of a car. You just see how he has done so much racing. He's able to jump away nicely at the lead. He's able to pick that clutch pickup point. In fact, everyone picked it up. The whole field moved away from the line in unison for the start of this race, which is just nice to see. They've all picked the rev. They've all got the clutch pickup point all at the exact same time and got away with it. It's just how long until they grab second gear and start to drive down into turn 1. Very impressive start to this race.
It's a half-second gap between Leeds and Hughes at this point of the race, lap 4 of 13. So still early days yet, quite a long race for these guys. You're certainly not going to win it at this rate. So Lockie Hughes is doing the sensible thing and just conserving those tyres. I mean, we're at the stage now. We've had qualifying, race 1, a pretty warm race 1 at that too on Saturday. Race 2 today, and another 20-minute race here at Sydney Motorsport Park. They're sort of approaching the end of their life, these Hankook tyres. They won't see another race until practice at Phillip Island for our next round, but Lockie Hughes maybe just conserving for a last lap of dash on fresher tyres compared to Lewis Leeds.
Well, here's the other part of the strategy for the Camps Pace Australian Formula 4 Championship, and that is managing the tyre bank.
Yeah.
When we get to Phillip Island, it's notoriously abrasive on tyres in any formula of car, and if you're doing a fast lap, you're tearing rubber out of your tyres. So Phillip Island will really, really test the tyre bank for these crews and how many laps they do once they put the new tyres on for qualifying. Ideally, it's out, fast lap in, and then park it up. But inevitably, these younger drivers will want to use the whole 25-minute session to get their qualifying time, but it'll be about managing that tyre bank for Phillip Island, that's for sure. And that's not just Formula 4, that's all the categories that go to Phillip Island. It's a notoriously abrasive surface. Lots of grip, high grip, but with high grip becomes abrasive surface. So one really awesome bit, but the trade-off is that tyres do get a lot of deg at Phillip Island.
And it's a short championship this year too. We conclude about June, July of this year at the Bend, the double round again, with supporting the Shannons Nationals after our double at Phillip Island. So it's an early finish. A lot of these kids, it's hard to believe that our youngest driver is about 15 years of age. So they still have school to contend with and that commitment, and that's certainly very important. So their racing season is done and dusted halfway through the year, so they can spend the rest of the year focused on their schooling. Lewis Leeds currently in Year 12 at the moment. Very important year for him. Could he perhaps clinch the high VCE score and the pace Australian Formula 4 Championship? Would be a 2019 to remember.
Well, look, there's no substitute for fitness. Lewis is a very fit bloke, and that certainly helps when you've got to study late into the night.
Yeah.
If you've got yourself fit and healthy, you can concentrate for longer. His motivation might be to be fit and healthy so he can concentrate for longer behind the wheel of a race car, but there'll be a trade-off with his education as well.
Tell you what, we're getting a little bit of Lewis Leeds' train here at the moment. Lewis has just extended that gap by about 0.7 ahead of Lockie Hughes as we approach lap 6 of 13 rather. Ryan Sewell, the fastest man on track as well, 1 minute 32.0, about 2/10 quicker than Lewis Leeds on that last lap. He's about 1.1 off the leaders at the moment.
Rob, I'm going to suggest that these guys, with the exception of Ryan Sewell, have gone into time management mode. They've gone, right, this is a 13 lapper, let's try and get away and try and establish a lead. Okay, we'll do that for 3 laps. If it doesn't work out, we'll just see where the pace of the other guys are at. If they're all sort of willing to hang around maybe a second or a second and a half off the pace and look after the tyres, then you'll probably see them all just start to do that. I'd say probably still about 4 laps remaining. So we're at 8 laps now. Ryan Sewell is still quick, so they may have to respond to the fact that Ryan Sewell is, I guess, not playing along with it, but he's doing a really strong job. His drive in the race earlier today was second to none. Did a tremendous effort.
What are these guys up to? Lockie Hughes fastest in the first sector, Lewis Leeds fastest in the second, and Ryan Sewell fastest in the third. So they've got their own little pockets of success around this track. So that's why we're seeing these cars still really close together. I mean, we talk about the aero wash around here. Common open-wheel driver racing complaint. Doesn't matter if it's F4 or Formula One, you're always going to complain there's never enough downforce when you approach the back of a car, but they're seemingly hanging on in there as we approach the halfway mark of this race. Lewis still leads Lockie Hughes, Ryan Saul, Antonio Estudi. He's currently tied for the round points at the moment in 4th place, but it looks like Leeds will naturally break away in this one if results stay as they are, followed by Jackson Walls in 5th and Emerson Harvey and Tommy Smith rounding out the top 7.
Yeah, and Antonio Estudi's actually lost touch with this lead pack at the moment, being led by Lewis Leeds, Lockie Hughes and Ryan Sewell. The really good thing for Hughesy at the moment is that he is in the results rather than being a DNF. So the number 15 in P2 at the moment, only on 36 points. Ryan Sewell as well, who had an issue yesterday, only on 33 points. So these two probably should start to think about working together to get Lewis Leeds and relegate him back a little bit. But at the moment, Lewis Leeds has just got this game on the string. He's just easing away. He's not let the gap get too much under half a second. He did have it out to a second. It's now back under half a second. But I would say Lockie Hughes has responded to the pace that Ryan Sewell's been setting. He set the fastest lap of the race 1 lap ago.
I'm absolutely in awe of these top 3 drivers. They're in career best form in their Formula 4 careers respectively. Of course, a lot of laps these guys have done, not only in racing but also testing as well. I mean, we had a 2-month gap. They were absolutely bored in that time. So what better way to do it than to cut laps and cut sick around a Formula 4 car for 2 months? And it's paying dividends at the moment. If this was the Grand Premier Grand Prix to Sydney Motorsport Park, we'd certainly be thrilled with this because we've got 1, 2, 3. Could be anyone's game so far.
Certainly could. And Antonio Estudi showed a lot of pace earlier on today with his great result there. So he could still weigh in this with 6 laps to go.
Ryan Saul still the fastest man on track. Hasn't beaten that time yet, so I'm suggesting that was the best in terms of what we got for lap time. So who knows, we may have a last lap dash, but I'm willing to bet at the moment the tyres are only going to get worse from here on in, and how those drivers respond is anyone's guess. I think Lockie Hughes just sort of dropping back a little bit, still about 6/10 off as we approached lap 8, but Ryan Saul just a little bit closer. So out of all the scenarios, I reckon it'll be a case of when's Ryan Saul going to get Lockie Hughes as opposed to when Lockie Hughes gets Lewis Leeds, to be honest.
And Ryan Sewell's playing the game at the moment. He's applying the pressure. He's applied the pressure for 2 laps. This lap he's currently on, he's just sort of allowing it to unfold. So we still have 5 laps left to go. The problem is that if he leaves it too late and he can't find a way, an instant way through on the number 15, then he's wasted time sitting in 3rd place for the last 2 laps or so. So I'd suggest to Ryan Sewell now, if you've got it in you, mate, make your move ASAP, because then you've got to deal with Lewis Leeds. Yeah,
Lewis Leeds is starting to just slightly slink away. Only about a 10th, but let's face it, you only need a 10th to win this race at the moment. Ryan Sewell, just that gap again, that train sort of stretching out as we approach the front straight into turn 1, the fastest corner in Australian motorsport. They're flat aboard these Formula 4 cars. The sticky hand-cooked tyres giving ample grip through there and enough commitment. I mean, these guys are simply brave and believe they can tackle any corner flat. That one confidently flat.
So these guys are all in identical cars, as you just mentioned, Rob, all on the Control Hankook tyre, which has been on board since day 1 here in Australia. They run the Ford EcoBoost 1600cc turbocharged power plant. They run these magnificent Magale chassis, which we've seen have much success here in Australia in other open-wheeler categories, and they've certainly proven to be very durable cars as far as open-wheeler racing. We've seen some coming together. We saw a couple of cars getting air this morning with contact, and yes, they're broken consumables, but the rest of the car has managed to hold up to some biff and barge and a little bit of contact here and there, some interlocking wheels. So it keeps it good. It keeps certainly the cost down. When you start tearing corners off cars, you don't want to be doing that. But when you do, massive drift all the way around the back of Corporate Hill there for Jackson Walls. He's starting to feel some tyre deg there on board the Pawtucky Small Goods Objective car. Back to the race leader, the 23 red racing outfit, right behind Lockie Hughes for Leipzig, and have a look at Ryan Sewell for Ray White Real Estate.
Yeah, Lockie Hughes, that gap before was 0.7. It's now 0.9. So Ryan Sewell is certainly applying the pressure to his teammate, Lockie Hughes. Both Ryan and Lockie both had DNFs at some point this weekend. Ryan Sewell had a drivetrain issue, a rare reliability freak issue that we saw. I mean, we've had these cars for a few years now. The reliability we've certainly got on top of. And meanwhile, Lockie Hughes had a coming together with Antonio Estudi at that corner right there a few hours ago, but is certainly hanging on for P2 at the moment with Ryan Sewell. P3 so far. Antonio Estudi just behind him, P4. He's running a race on his own at the moment, as is Jackson Walls, Emerson Harvey, and Tommy Smith in top 7.
Ryan Sewell just getting a little bit frustrated in behind Lockie Hughes at the moment. The only cure for frustration on board the number 5 at the moment is to try and stuff one down the inside. We're counting down the laps. We've been saying this for the last 4 laps. It was lap 8 we started talking about on, well, I suppose, handing out advice to these young racers, albeit from the safety of the commentary position. But Ryan Sewell now, it's a ticking clock. We've got 3.5 laps left to go. If you can find a spot to get by on the number 15, it's about now that he needs to start to get the job done.
Squeal. I think that was Emerson Harvey.
Aren't we? Under duress there, the handcooks on the Shannons insurance entry of Emerson Harvey.
Yeah, he's just finding the track limits. I mean, that's all part of, for Emerson, his second ever motor racing weekend. This is his 6th race in a Formula 4. He's come a long way since the Australian Grand Prix, that's for sure.
If it's the last time he puts a set of tyres under duress, then, well, he's not going to be a race driver for a whole long time, is he? The whole career can be punctuated for putting tyres under duress. Nearly every lap of a race car is exactly that. Lewis leads now. We're out over 1.1 seconds. We sat there for about the best part of 5 laps at half a second. He's now just applying the pace. And what he's doing is each lap is about 0.2, 0.3 of a second faster than Lockie Hughes. Now, Lockie Hughes has still got the back of his car filled with the BRM blue of Ryan Sewell, the yellow placards, grey white real estate on the side, and there's some more tyres under duress. Wide goes Lockie Hughes. Will Ryan Sewell shove it down the inside here? He's probably missed the opportunity to do so. Out over the back of the ripple strip went the number 15, Lockie Hughes, the pilot on board. He's managed to gather it all back up, and Ryan Sewell couldn't take full advantage of that situation. Tucked back in behind, waits for another moment. They're 2.5 laps away from the checkered flag. Now, what this is doing is allowing Lewis Leeds to just march away with it. It's now 1.6 seconds out in front for Lewis in the AGI Sport Megala.
There's no worse feeling for a racing driver, I reckon, than being the hunted. You always want to be the hunter. Ryan Sewell has certainly got his hunting cap on over Lockie Hughes for P2 at the moment. As things stand, Lewis leads the winner of the round, Antonio Estudi second. And if the results stay as they are, it'll be Lockie Hughes in 3rd place. So he'll certainly be eager to hang on to that position.
Lockie Hughes is a testament to him here. I haven't seen him jagging his head around to see what the car behind is doing much at all. He's had a glance in the straight, and that's about it. He's not interested in what Ryan Sewell's doing. He's holding his position on the track. He knows Ryan Sewell's with him, so he is covering the corners off of sorts. He's not blocking, that's for sure. He's allowing the race to take its course. The officials haven't deemed it to be anything unfair yet. We haven't seen any blue flags being waved. Maybe that's what we will see towards the end of this lap, being that we're going to be closing in on the final lap of the race, but they'll be allowed to duel on here.
This is the battle for the podium. So whoever finishes second through this race will be 3rd for the round. So this absolutely matters so far between Lockie Hughes and Ryan Sewell. Certainly want to add to their trophy collection, these two boys. Certainly last year they were collecting plenty of trophies in the 2018 CAM Space Australian Formula 4 Championship. Both of these guys too are Burson Auto Parts rookies of 2017 and 18 respectively. And Emerson Harvey, coincidentally, also today's Burson Rookie of the Round winner.
Lockie Hughes burst onto the scene at Phillip Island last year. He was carrying an injury, drove a ripper race meeting, really did grab everyone's attention at that one. Now he's grabbing everyone's attention. Most importantly, the magnifying glass is on him from behind. He'd start to feel the pressure now. 1 lap to go. You've withstood the pressure for 11 laps, Lockie. Hold on. Ryan Sewell's going to do everything he possibly can. At the moment, looks to the inside.
Big
That's
locker.
it. He's shoved it in there. He had to do it at some point. He had to try, but it was a lock-up on the left-hand front. You could see him working away at the brake pedal to try and release it. But what that has done is that it's absolutely shown us that he is willing to give it a go.
He's having a crack at least, and it was, I guess, a case of, well, what's the worst that could happen apart from having a tangle with my own teammate, which is the biggest no-no in the teammate rule book. The worst that could happen is, oh, I'm still third.
There's a hard stand out the back there to a nice smooth bit of concrete, so you do get to run off and regain if you get down there and it's all looking a bit pear-shaped, and that's what it was. Ryan managed to gather it all back up, so that gap has actually now eased out to just over 1 second. So Lockie Hughes, who has driven a terrific race, like I said, he's just every now and again glanced in the mirror to see where the car behind him is. He's now had a bit of a glance coming out of the hairpin, and he will have seen that car's further back. In fact, it'll just be a bit of a vibrating colour in those wing mirrors off the side pods of these cars. There's the checkered flag being shown to Lewis Leeds as he comes down in the 23 red racing outfit to win race number 3.
He goes back-to-back for AGI Sport. Here's an incredible record. It's about over 6 races in a row AGI Sport has won around Sydney Motorsport Park, dating back all the way, I think, in 2017. I believe Nick Rowe, the first winner, and the first winner of many for AGI. Jaden O'Jaden took a clean sweep last year. Lewis Leeds, Antonio Studi winners at Sydney Motorsport Park. But Lewis Leeds, your Sydney Motorsport Park Camps Pace Australian Formula 4 Round 2 winner.
Terrific drive there for Lewis Leeds. Beat home Lockie Hughes, Ryan Sewell, Antonio Studi, Jackson Walls, Emerson Harvey and Tommy Smith. The meeting results look like this. Lewis Leeds home on 65, Antonio Studi on 52, Lockie Hughes on 36, Ryan Sewell on 33, Jackson Walls 32, Emerson Harvey 26 and Tommy Smith on 26 there as well. So Lewis Leeds, the victor for 23 red racing. Lockie Hughes and Ryan Sewell will round out our podium for the last race of the weekend for the Camps Pace Australian Formula 4 Championship, and indeed round 1 of the 2019 Shannons Nationals.